Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. Dear Jeff, by the time you read this letter, I will have left you. I know it's a little silly to leave you a Dear John email, but I know there's going to be a terrible scene that I honestly just don't want to face. Call me a coward if you want, but I can't accept the pain I know I'm going to cause you. You see, I got bored. I'm bored of living the same way we've lived for the last 28 years, plus the 4 years we've been dating in college. I'm tired of you reading my mind and finishing sentences. Even though it feels good when you rub my neck or legs in such a special way, I just know that you will do what is needed, just by the way I sigh, or by the way I flop into an armchair or bed, and it starts to bother me. It feels like I don't even have my own thoughts, and it's scary. And I'm also tired of our boring bed life. Oh, I know you would object to that statement the most. I know that 98% of the time I rejected your advances and refrained from making love until I was ready on my own terms. I know it all seems hypocritical and selfish. It seems selfish because that's the way it is, and that's why I'm leaving. I need the thrill of the chase, the excitement of a new lover, and you can never be like that again. You were so hot when we were young, played guitar with Buddy in a band, rode your Harley in that beautiful leather jacket, the wind blew your blonde curls, delighted me on the dance floor. Whether in a rock and roll club or in a ballroom, there were always beautiful paintings that he drew it with me and the children. But we got old and became complacent in the way we treated each other. The rock band concerts have stopped so you can coach the football team. The Harley is parked in the garage, buried under children's sports equipment in front of the minivan, and my knees just can't stay on the dance floor. But you still have such beautiful hair. But now the kids are grown up, and I'm uncomfortable with the minivan life that you seem to have fallen in love with. I assure you, I have not cheated on you, and you remain the only man. However, I found men who interest me, and before I started cheating on you, I thought it was best to break up with you. I couldn't bear the thought of disrespecting you in secret, Jeff. I've always loved you too much for that. I'm sure our paths will cross again, but I never want to discuss this with you. I talked to Sam and asked him to represent us in the divorce. He completed the paperwork, leaving you everything except my clothes and personal belongings, which I took out today. I even left you half of my pension and took over half of the servicing of our debts, minus the mortgage. It's only fair, and I want to be at least fair. Please shed your tears in private so that when we meet at children's events, we can continue to avoid scenes. But justice is justice, so if you want to respond in a letter, I promise to read every word and appreciate your parting thoughts. I love Ellen. I read it over and over again, frozen in the place in the kitchen where I took it. There were no tears yet. I was too stunned. There was nothing to indicate that this would happen. There was no expression of dissatisfaction, no hint of wanting more, no struggle, no hint of another man in her world. We touched, we kissed, we smiled. We did the little things that two people intend to grow old together. In fact, I've spent the last year trying to have an affair with her, trying to rekindle our passions now that our youngest has left for good after graduating from college. I bought jewelry, but she warned me that it was too expensive and she would prefer chocolate. I gave her control over making love because she claimed that I was straining her by forcing her to make love. She said holding hands with her is also helpful. I think she gave me a clue. I just thought she was slowing down with the change in her life. And here I am, the last to know about it. I took a beer and took a shower. Yes, at the same time. After finishing my beer, I grabbed 2 more and went back to the shower. There was no one around to reproach me for leaving a trail of water on her floor. I drank, intending to finish my stock, including wine from the cellar. I really made a serious dent in my mind. The next morning I woke up with a burning headache on the floor of my basement, naked after a shower. I went upstairs, threw up everything I ate, got into bed and cried. I was 11 years old when my grandmother died. My grandfather took me aside and talked to me a lot at the wake and funeral. He taught me a lesson. You get 3 days of mourning when someone dies. God raised the dead in 3 days, and you can resurrect your life. Cry, scream, kick things. When you're older, have a drink. Get into a good bar fight. Pray. Make as much of it as you can. Then stop and get back to your life. Honor the departed as you move on. A person does not live in the past, which he has lost. He lives in the present, which he is building, and in the future, which he is moving towards. Grandfather was wise. I thought my wife's defection had ruined our marriage. I cried my eyes out, drank myself senseless, punched holes in the drywall walls with my fists until they started bleeding, and then used furniture or whatever else was at hand to do the job. I was screaming. I kicked. I drank it. I didn't eat much, but I decided that beer is grain, yeast, and water. Like bread, right? And wine is fruit. It was my bottled food. It was summer. She waited until the end of the school year to leave. Good planning. I woke up Tuesday after Friday when she dropped her bomb and came out of mourning. I called my kids first. Ellen informed them of her decision, and they desperately tried to reach me. I was too drunk to answer the phone, but I assured them that I was fine. I cleaned up the house and then called my favorite charity to come and get a donation truck. There was no way I was going to cling to the mess of a failed marriage. I kept the furniture that was in the family. I packed photos and photo albums. My children could have them if they wanted. I treated all the other memorabilia the same way, but I threw away the ridiculous trinkets that she had acquired, but I never liked them. What the hell do I care about Spanish ceramics or the copper cats we bought in Portugal? The next couple of days, I visited the Home Depot, buying floors and carpets, paint, and, oh yes, new drywall. Now I set out to make this house my home. The pink and coral walls and frilly curtains were history. I stopped at Sam's and signed the paperwork. He said that since it was undeniable and only one lawyer was involved, our divorce would be final closer to the time when school would return to school. I sold the minivan and drove to a small dealer in a back alley in the city center. I came home in a '76 Triumph Spitfire convertible, which I've always wanted. British racing green, beige leather upholstery, and chrome alloy wheels. I unpacked the Harley, which was easy after clearing the garage of all that old and used junk. But my best decision was to call Buddy. That call changed my life as quickly as my wife's letter had, just a few days ago. Half an hour after I told him what had happened, Buddy and the guys came to my house. Buddy has been my best friend since the 3rd grade. We formed our band together, played ball together, went to the same classes, met twice at weddings. He was my best man. I was best man at his wedding. The breakup of my marriage was a disaster in his eyes, and he couldn't let me go through it alone. Our band stopped playing many years ago when life intervened, but the people we became friends with did not forget us. When I say Buddy and the guys, there were a lot of guys there. We have played at weddings, parties, and picnics for many people. We often performed on the cheap or for free because we liked the female fans who followed us from concert to concert. Goodwill begets goodwill, and when everyone heard that I had trashed my home with the intention of converting it into my home, the gates of Goodwill swung wide open. Over the next 2 weeks, painters, carpenters, bricklayers, plumbers, all the types of tradesmen you can imagine fixed a lot more than my walls. You wouldn't be able to recognize my house for a month. It has been redone inside and out. The funny thing about a crowd of guys is they come with a crowd of girls. Their wives and girls looked into the Jeff's house project to observe it, and soon began bringing their single girlfriends for the Jeff's Love Life project. No one was aggressive in their matchmaking attempts. It was too early for that, but it was obvious that the seeds had been sown, and soon I was dancing and having fun 2 to 3 evenings a week. There were impromptu barbecues and parties at my house, and I never lacked for company, although I didn't really want to get into a relationship before my divorce was final. Buddy suggested recreating the band. In fact, he had already gone out and given concerts at some clubs whose owners were old friends. Before the fresh paint dried on my house, Buddy and Jeff debuted at Jimmy's and took over Friday nights. He engaged us on Saturdays at a small dance club in the city and on Sunday evenings at a popular seafood restaurant on the water. We sounded like we never stopped playing. We were all in the same place in our lives, where our children either moved away or no longer needed us. We all looked pretty good, and we all wore our own hair except Ronnie, our drummer. We got along really well. Our fans were happy to come out of hibernation and hear us again. My sons visited me at every opportunity, helped with repairs, and even went out with the group from time to time. I strictly ordered them not to tell their mother anything about me, and if she asks, to tell the truth. Dad was very upset, but he moved on and everything is fine. My daughter, who lived in Australia with her fiancé, received similar training. My children have been kind to me, and I have always believed that they respect my wishes. I knew they were being truthful when they told me that Ellen had not received any information from them about my well-being. I also spent time fighting loneliness by strengthening healthy habits, improving my diet, and stepping up my exercise routine. I had never allowed myself to get out of shape, but now I was swimming vigorously in the pool, and I did not forget running and cycling. Every night, even before going to the concert, I practiced. I redid my house, my social status, my class calendar, my relationship with my children, and my body within a month of Ellen's departure. I think it's time to respond to her letter. After all, she asked for it, right? Dear Ellen, thank you. You were right. Goodbye, Jeff. I sent her an email. Short and sweet, that says it all. I didn't have her new address, and I didn't really need it. Someone tried to tell me that she had slept with some handsome guy, the same age as my daughter, who drove a fancy car and was a very pleasant companion. They were seen together on the beach in clubs and on the beach. Whenever someone told me about her, I politely replied that I didn't want to hear it. But we had a lot of friends, and these little pieces soon came together to paint a picture of a hot September-June romance. Maybe in October or June, November, May? It didn't matter to me. I really wished her well. Grandpa's 3-day rule kept me moving on, and I liked me right now too much to dwell on the memories. The end of summer is a sad reality in a teacher's life, but August is a hot time for a musician. This year was no exception. Buddy and I signed up for festival after festival, right up until September. On Labor Day, we played 2 to 3 times a day. Due to the busy schedule, I was unable to read her email reply. I didn't ignore her. I just thought we were exchanging one letter and moving on. After all, this is what she wanted, right? I was just too busy and having too much fun to check my email. In fact, I almost forgot about my marital agony when Sam called and informed me that our business was really moving fast. It seems that a certain clerk with a family court judge was a fan of a certain group. I was supposed to officially become a bachelor on Friday. After a month and a half of the metamorphosis of life, on Friday I will become a bachelor again. We were playing at an art festival/street fair in the city, and suddenly all these beautiful women with short skirts and plunging cleavages became fair game. Cool. When we went on stage, a crowd gathered outside. We turned the amps on to the concert settings and put our hard-driving blues style into play. We did covers of songs, sang originals, improvised jams on the spot, and people had a lot of fun. It was very pleasant. The guys dug into the vaults and found our master tapes from the past. We never bothered to record a record before we had children, but now we have found enough material to fill a couple of improvised albums. CDs are much easier to release than vinyl, and we put old and new tracks together, and there was a brisk trade on the sales table. I didn't see Ellen in the crowd. I missed her attempt to go backstage as I hung the guitar on the back bar, which I put on my bike many years ago specifically for transporting the guitar. I didn't see her running towards me when Michelle, a 30-year-old blonde, swung her leg to sit behind me. I didn't see how her face fell when she realized that another woman was sitting in her place for the first time in the life of my 25-year-old Harley. Driving away from her, I didn't notice her tears. It's a pity that I didn't see it. Michelle was amazing. At the end of the evening, she told me that she would never forget me during the time we spent together, but suggested that I not call her anymore. She was probably wondering how long it would take her to recover and walk normally. I didn't think I could avoid Ellen forever, and I didn't do it. The next time I noticed Ellen was at our usual Friday night concert at Jimmy's. She walked through the door with her toy boy and another young couple. They found a table and ordered a beer. As soon as I saw her, I gave the guys a sign that we were going beyond our prepared set list. The band always liked to play American Girl in those days when we noticed an ex-girlfriend in the hall, and the offended guy always got the microphone as soon as the girl was noticed. It was our way of closing ranks in support of our friend. We stubbornly clung to the idea that a girl who broke up with one of us was not suitable for any of us, and none of us ever crossed the line to date ex-girlfriends. I started playing in a slower style, which was popularized by Lenny Kravitz. I have never enjoyed this melody more than when I sang with all the soul I was capable of. The guitar solos were memorable and really turned the crowd on. I didn't see Ellen's face fall when she realized we were playing this old tune for her, but Buddy's wife noticed it. Later, she told me that tears welled up in her eyes when I sang the lines, "Stay away from me," and "Come on, leave me alone," and she cried at, "Don't knock on my door. I don't want to see your face anymore." She left before the end of the song, barely controlling herself. The toy boy, his friends and girlfriends did not go with her, but stayed for several hours, drinking and dancing. There must have been some kind of trouble in paradise. A week later, my eldest son visited me. Apparently, Ellen and her young lover had a fight that night. He was obviously tired of her charm, and she was tired of keeping up with the activity level of a 20-year-old guy. He was upset that she had restricted his lifestyle by avoiding the places where we played. There was a rumor that the band was active again, and wherever we played, it was a trendy and crowded place. It also turned out that he was more than unhappy that she had given up her property rights in the divorce. Obviously, he was planning to move into my house. I suspected he was a gold digger, but what an asshole. I think he didn't know about our prenuptial agreement, that if one of us leaves the family for greener pastures, he leaves ruined. The other retains the house, money, furniture, accumulated finances, and other valuables earned during their life together, no matter how short or long that life was. It was her father's idea, as he did not trust any man's intentions towards his little girl. I had no intention of harming her, so I would have signed anything. Obviously, Ellen remembered this, and that's probably why she offered me everything. And it was so easy for her to accept a divorce agreement where she was losing everything anyway. The toy boy sent her packing, and she spent the last night crying with the kids on the phone. I really felt sorry for her, but don't forget that I spent 3 days in mourning for my marriage and was now free from worries about her. The children were unhappy with my attitude. Of course, they thought I was still single, and they thought I should bring their mom back to the family home, at least to help her get back on her feet. I did not agree. Accepting her meant that I would have to be responsible for the mood swings that she would undoubtedly experience in peak amounts. The normal menopausal experience she shared with me before the divorce was bad enough. Dealing with it, her feeling rejected by a toy boy, the humiliation of crawling to me on her lap, plus the potential guilt for abandoning me in the first place, were not the things I wanted to add it to my daily menu. I started eating better, living a simpler, uncluttered life in a clean, uncluttered house, enjoying my golden years of a career as a highly respected teacher, partying with my band and playing duet concerts with Buddy, and my personal life was more active than ever. Many women just dreamed of being together with a popular single musician. I couldn't imagine bringing another woman home just to introduce her to my ex-wife, sitting in the living room watching TV and eating ice cream with sweets. No, I never liked being single when I was young, and I had no plans to do anything to change that style now. The days stretched into weeks. The kids softened there, take her in, to help her out, and I committed by letting them raid the storage room I rented for furniture and things that were too good for the dump when Ellen finally rented a small apartment. I even lent them a truck that the band bought to carry equipment from concert to concert. With the new school year in full swing and the group's active schedule, I rarely saw Ellen. She taught in the same area, but at a different school, so our paths sometimes crossed, but I really didn't pay attention to her when it happened. I was a popular topic of discussion in the rumor mill. Perhaps this was due to the frequent appearance of a Harley or my favorite sports car. Perhaps it was my increased activity level that carried over into school life. Perhaps it was my new status as a single man. The rumors didn't matter to me. The band was very popular, my barbecue parties were known as a good time, and I never lacked for female company. Happy as a clam. I was having fun and just didn't miss family life. I flew to France for Thanksgiving. It was an old dream to be in France on the day when Beaujolais was on sale. After packing my bags, I was surprised when my son called the night before I left and invited me to dinner on Turkey Day at Ellen's. He was really upset to find out that I had other plans, and immediately nailed me on having a family Christmas that he and his girlfriend would cook, and I just had to provide a place. He told me that all my 3 children were coming to town, and they really wanted to spend a special day to remember their childhood. I gave in on the condition that Ellen knew she shouldn't come on a date, and that I would repay her in kind by dedicating my company to the children. I was genuinely surprised when he told me that his mom wasn't dating at all, and that she was actually very lonely. I just wasn't interested in some guy grinning like a cat full of cream at a family gathering like this, so I didn't pry into my ex-wife's personal life. They could stay in my house as long as they wanted. In fact, I wanted all the children to stay at home with me and not go to the hotel. Dad, Mom will feel so bad because we are all at home, and she will have to leave when everything is over. I considered his words. This will be the first reunion of my family since the kids moved in, when we could all be together. Ellen also belonged here, so invite her to stay too. But she will have to come to terms with the fact that she is the only one who does not sleep in her old room. Welcome to the guest room. If you guys bring guests, they'll have to sleep with you or go to the hotel. Thanks, Dad. It will mean so much to all of us. He was right. Christmas that year fell on a Saturday, and everyone arrived on Thursday evening. My daughter and her fiancé flew in from Australia, and my son and his girlfriend met them at the airport on their way to the city from Boston. My youngest was with them too, since he went to college in Boston. Ellen pulled up about 10 minutes before them, and I watched her sit in her car before the kids pulled up. She must have been nervous. It was touching to see how they all gathered to hug and kiss in the front yard. And for the first time since I came out of my 3-day mourning, I felt a little sick because of the water that passed under our collective bridge. They entered the front door to find a very pleasant homecoming. Of course, neither my daughter nor my ex-wife had been in the house since I rebuilt it, so that in itself was a bit of a surprise. But I hung Christmas decorations almost the same way we've decorated halls for years. Candles, nutcrackers, and garlands were in place, although on my new furniture. The Christmas tree, with all the old decorations that we bought at Christmas fairs or made by hand in the art class, stood in its venerable central place. I added a fireplace when I renovated the living room, and the warm fire burned with a pine spirit. The smells of wood, fire, and heated cider filled the room. Plates of cookies and fudge stood in every corner, and the table was covered with fine china that Grandma Ellen gave us as a wedding gift many years ago. There was no doubt that I had turned our house into my home, but there was also no doubt that my house was more than ready to host Christmas for my family. My family. After everything that had happened, it seemed strange, but they really were my family. The children, even though they had grown up, were still my flesh and blood, and even though I was divorced, my ex-wife kept the key to my heart for most of my adult life. When they looked around, there was a lot of fuss and excitement. I restored the children's bedrooms to almost the same style they grew up in, except that I softened the bright pink color in my daughter's room to a more mature soft pastel shade. I also replaced their old single beds with comfortable double beds, managing to match the new headboards with their children's table and chest of drawers. The spacious guest room has been converted into a studio, complete with a drawing table by the window, instruments, amplifiers, and recording equipment necessary for music. I expanded one side of the ground floor, opening a small library into a large room with a TV and a billiard table. The living room was furnished with a large new fireplace, on which hung brand new Christmas stockings, one for everyone, including Ellen. The children noticed the stockings and froze, looking at each other with a devilish gleam in their eyes. As one, they broke the silence and rushed to get stockings. When they did, I saw the years melt away in their bodies, and suddenly they were little kids again, flying headfirst into the joy of Christmas. Maturity regained its dignity when the two older ones also took their partner's stockings and returned them, muttering separate stories about childhood memories that brought the stockings back. It was our responsibility to lovingly decorate small, inexpensive gifts and treats to fill stockings before we moved on to the basic gifts under the tree. Soon they were all nibbling cookies and chocolate and trying on ridiculous new socks that can only be worn on Christmas days. But, Dad, your stocking is empty. We didn't know, so we didn't take anything with us. I grabbed a stocking from the mantelpiece and looked inside. No, you filled it up. You are all here, remembering, laughing, playing. Now you are filling it with the essence of Christmas. You fill it with your love. There were a few touching hugs and kisses as we all wished each other a Merry Christmas. Ellen stayed in our arms a little longer than expected from an ex-wife, but not so awkwardly, and for a while it seemed to us that we were still one big happy family. The children realized that there were probably presents under the tree, and the dizziness from the children's Christmas holidays came flooding in an instant. We exchanged gifts, the feast was sumptuous, and after the dishes were cleared away, the guitars appeared, and we had our usual Christmas pastime. It was already late, and we started to go to our bedrooms. Ellen went to the closet in the hallway to get her coat. Thank you for being so nice to me today. I really appreciate spending Christmas with you and the kids. I know I have to blame myself, But of all the things I've given up, I miss family time the most. Well, the children have already grown up and live on their own. It would be just as rare if we were still together. I know, but I also miss the family time that you and I had, the time of a family of two. I guess I'm trying to finally tell you that I'm sorry. I really ruined a good life for both of us. Don't beat yourself up. We always told the children to follow their dreams, to be happy. That's exactly what you did. We still have a good life. It's just different now. She looked at me incredulously. Are you saying that you have so few regrets about what we had? Are you not feeling nostalgic at all after today? Don't you regret what we've lost? Ellen, we had today, and it was wonderful. What have we lost? We lost each other. I've lost you, and I will never forgive myself for that. Don't you care? She was crying hard now. I hugged her, and she completely broke down. I cried when she left, but I was sad that it happened to her now, on Christmas Day. When she finally calmed down, I reminded her that when we were dating in college, she broke up with me. She was afraid that we were getting serious too soon, and wanted to think a little bit about whether she really wanted to spend the rest of her life exclusively with one guy. I told her how much it hurt me that she left me, but that I would never want to be completely with someone who didn't feel completely devoted to me. I told her that I had given my marriage one of the 3-day mourning periods and came out on the other side, ready to continue living my life. She was a wonderful part of my life today, and I thanked her for that. I was calm, and that saved her from crying. I invited her to stay the night, pulled out a bed in the studio, and gave her my t-shirt and bathrobe so she could walk around the house. I heard her sobbing when I came back upstairs after I locked the house, and I didn't think she would sleep much. However, I slept like a log. The next day was a continuation of Christmas, and Ellen was thrilled when we all begged her to stay the whole weekend. We didn't talk about our past anymore while the kids were there, but I recognized the looks Ellen gave me when we were married. I saw the smiles of, "I love you so much," and "You're wonderful." I even responded to a couple of "hug me" and "can I kiss you" looks. We read each other's minds, as we did when we were married. At the table, she poured herself coffee, and I added the right amount of milk. I was buttering my pancakes and, looking back, I saw that she had applied just the right amount of maple syrup. We finished the sentences one after the other. However, we slept in different rooms. The kids all left together. My daughter was planning to spend time with the boys in Boston and then go skiing in Vermont. As a result, Ellen and I were left alone in the house we bought together. I lit a fire. She opened a bottle of wine. We sat and talked. We reminisced, joked, and then became serious. I was so stupid, so wrong, and so cruel. I know I'll never be able to make it up to you, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to say that I'm really sorry. I want to at least be friends again. You were not only my husband, you were my best friend, my advisor, my most trusted colleague, my accomplice, and I miss it all so much. I looked at her, smiled, and the dam burst. Ellen can talk, and she has woven a masterpiece of talking to one person. She told me about how she got bored, although now she realizes that she shut herself off from me in order to create a vacuum of passion that we went through together. She told me about the excitement of meeting a flattering young guy and the charm of a secret love affair. She told me how easy it was to turn me into a monster when she was behaving monstrously herself. Her story was about acts of betrayal, accompanied by rage that I didn't fight for her, that I was indifferent and just let her go. She told me how jealous she was of my life when I landed on my feet and returned to the lifestyle I liked when we met, especially when she saw some pretty young Michelle. I'll never forget the first date after the divorce, girl riding in her place in the back the seat of my Harley. Jealousy turned to rage when she saw me with girl after girl, offering something else that Ellen thought was superior to what she was giving me. Her emotions plummeted when the divorce was final, and she discovered that her boyfriend only dated married women until they became single and then dumped them. He seemed to enjoy spending their husband's money ever since his father, an old-school conservative who strongly disapproved of his son's destructive methods, disowned him and withdrew his trust funds. She didn't find another perspective after the breakup. It seems that good men suitable for her age were either already busy or did not want to take seriously a woman who cheated on her devoted first husband. There were many men who could buy her a drink, dance with her, or get into bed with her, but there was no one who wanted a serious relationship. The young guys were happy to date her. After all, she looked hot and exuded sensuality when she wanted to flip that switch. But they definitely didn't want to have anything to do with a long-term relationship with someone who is in menopause. It is difficult to create a family in such conditions. I listened to her chatter until she was exhausted. I poured each of us a glass of wine and handed it to her with a smile. Yes, from what you said, you were pretty stupid. But you don't have to make it up to me. Like I said, you were following your dream, and I loved you enough to allow it. I wish I had a picture of her face at that moment. She clearly didn't expect me to connect my reaction to my love for her. I really forgave you, almost immediately. How could I keep you married when you wanted to leave? I couldn't keep you tied up or locked in a cage in the house. If I forbade you to do something, you would just hide it from me and move on. At first, your note might have seemed cruel, but looking back, I see that she really did everything clean and tidy. We didn't quarrel over property. We didn't have to worry about custody as the children grew up. I have to thank you for that. So, I'm not your husband anymore, and it may take a long time before you call me your best friend or advisor. Trust is definitely a problem for me, but if you want to trust my advice, that label is up to you. Partners in crime may be a little close for where we are right now, but how about we just call us friends? Her eyes filled with tears as she melted into my arms. She stayed one more night. No, don't think we slept apart. We just had a lot of catching up to do. It seemed like we were fine sharing the role of parents together again. The next day, she went home to pack up for a New Year's hike to join the kids in Boston. I've had concerts all week. It's a very lucrative time for musicians. Of course, the side benefit was that my mind was on the music and I didn't even think about Ellen. The school semester started right after the new year, and my new schedule didn't leave much room for me to meet Ellen. The next time our paths crossed was at a conference in April. We sat down next to each other and found ourselves together at a table for two to have lunch. We had a nice chat and discussed my daughter's upcoming marriage in Australia. It seemed that we had returned to the role of friends together. Towards the end of lunch, she thanked me for being so nice to her both today and at Christmas. She said she was so happy that we could move on as friends and asked me if I would do her a favor. She blushed and then grunted and stumbled a little, and finally mumbled a request to take her for a ride on the Harley one weekend. Of course, I answered without losing my rhythm. Sunday should be warm and beautiful, but we don't play on this day. Let's go north, stop for a great lunch, and spend some time outdoors. She was smiling and cheerful. I was attracted by the memories of how she rode a motorcycle with me when we were younger. The day always ended with an amazing romp in the bedroom, inspired by hours of her arms hugging me from behind. Arms and, well, you get the picture without any additional details. She always teased me, asking when the next time we would go for a ride with something big and powerful between her legs, and the bike was good too. I wasn't sure I could resist her. I was right. I couldn't. We drove up to the waterfall, and I felt her hands wandering. We climbed to the top of the waterfall and followed a long path through the forest down the hill to the motorcycle. We stopped in a quaint little town and strolled through the streets, browsing antique shops. It was a day that I absolutely hated, except for the fact that I was spending time with this woman who I spent my life with, seeing her beautiful in every way. The dinner was great. Then we drove back south and stopped for seafood dinner at a tavern on the marina. Candlelight, delicious food, waves gently lapping against the pier, boats gracefully passing. There was no doubt that the dinner was great. I took her home, to my house, to our house. I put her to bed, to our bed, to my bed. Yes, we made love this time. It seemed that now we were playing the role of lovers together. The next week we saw each other at dinner and at the movies, and yes, we made love again. We even had lunch together a couple of times. We never talked about what our relationship was leading up to. Thoughts about the word exceptional in any of its forms were not close to any of our minds. Our daughter's wedding was just around the corner. We discussed the details in detail, and I proudly wrote out all the checks without complaint. Hey, the band made some money playing all those festivals that were profitable. We paid off the mortgage when we were still married, had almost no credit card debt, and I worked full-time, at the top of the salary scale, and I had no dependents to support. I wasn't swimming in money, but I was comfortable and I had money in the bank. The details we didn't share were about our travel plan. Our daughter's wedding was just around the corner. We discussed the details in detail, and I proudly wrote out all the checks without complaint. Hey, the band made some money playing all those festivals that were profitable. We paid off the mortgage when we were still married, had almost no credit card debt, and I worked full-time, at the top of the salary scale, and I had no dependents to support. I wasn't swimming in money, but I was comfortable and I had money in the bank. The details we didn't share were about our travel plans. Each of us agreed on this separately, although both of us would stay in a hotel where all the guests would be together. When we compared the records, we found that we were on the same plane. I invited her to meet me at my house and share the car I hired to take me to the airport. The day of the trip came, and Ellen arrived early. I had barely rinsed the coffee pot and turned on the dishwasher with breakfast dishes when the car pulled into the driveway. Our driver took us to JFK Airport. Our bags were checked, and we headed to the terminal the day of the trip came, and Ellen arrived early. I had barely rinsed the coffee pot and turned on the dishwasher with breakfast dishes when the car pulled into the driveway. Our driver took us to JFK Airport. Our bags were checked, and we headed to the terminal together. There aren't many direct flights from JFK Airport to Sydney in a day right now, so the check-in desk wasn't crowded, and we joined the check-in queue together. I followed Ellen up, and the man at the counter asked why I hadn't taken a short queue for first-class passengers. I bought a first-class ticket as the flight was so long. Although I usually flew as cheaply as possible, I didn't realize that the benefits start with express check-in, and the ticket agent got a chuckle out of it. He directed me to the first-class waiting room. Ellen was waiting for me, and together we passed the security check and headed to the waiting room. I checked in at the front desk, and the attendant did not ask her about the ticket, but offered a standard phrase, "There is a seat in first class, and I could seat her next to you. Would you like to upgrade?" You're wrong. I know it looks that way, but something about flying halfway around the world with my daughter's mother to attend my daughter's wedding in first-class chairs that folded into a bed, while she would be crammed into the cabin without legroom, seemed wrong. When we boarded the plane, I made her wait with me. She was a little annoyed and, fearing that she would lose her place to stay away, began to worry. I explained that I had already registered it before. Of course, the irritation completely disappeared, but when she sat next to me in first grade and I gave her a reason as the mother of the bride, her mood changed. Don't be silly, dear reader. Now you should know that public displays of affection are not my style, especially in a cramped airplane toilet. We arrived in Sydney and the week was magical. We traveled, we visited famous places, and the best thing we did was launch my daughter into her own marriage. I can't tell you how proud I was to say my one phrase. Her mother-in-law arrived in Sydney and the week was magical. We traveled, we visited famous places, and the best thing we did was launch my daughter into her own marriage. I can't tell you how proud I was to say my one phrase. Her mot and I, to give her away after walking her down the aisle. I accompanied Ellen to the reception and enjoyed the appropriate dancing. Of course, the highlight of the evening was that her brothers and I joined the band to perform a rousing version of All American Girl as a musical offering to our little girl. After the reception, Ellen, the boys and I gathered in the lobby of the hotel. One of them got straight to the point. "So what's the matter with both of you?" "Nothing new, honey," Ellen replied. "Your dad and I are just your parents. We have left our past behind and are enjoying life. Does it suit you?" "Yes, Mom. It just looks like something more. It looks like you got close again. I don't know. Got back together?" "Honey, I'm not stupid. Some time ago, I went a little crazy and made a stupid mistake." "Okay, then I was honey, I'm not stupid. Some time ago, I went a little crazy and made a stupid mistake." "Okay, then I was stupid, very stupid. I am responsible for this, and I accept the consequences. Dad and I talked about it, and what he told me is true. As we always taught you, I made a choice. I left the relationship. I accept the consequences." The boys looked at me, waiting for me to continue. I had nothing to add, so I sat smiling and sipping a delicious local Australian ale. "Come on, Dad." Mom answered the question. "Will we hear from you?" "Boys, you should be happy that we didn't spend a week here making snide offensive comments humiliating each other. I've heard that this is what divorced couples do at events like this. Also, I think what you are asking for is generally within the realm of my personal life, and it goes beyond that. But, Dad, you love Mom. We all see it. And we're both old enough to know what it means for a girl to tell you that she just wants to be friends. So, without making nightmares and bad pictures of your personal life, just tell us, you and mom are friends more than just friends. Son, with our history, if we are friends, it will always be more than just FR. We talked a little more, then went up to our rooms. I had just changed into my pajamas when there was a knock on the door. It was Ellen. I let her in. We went to bed. She thanked me for the upgrade. Even before my breathing got back to normal, she started thanking me for a wonderful week, and then thanked me for making my daughter's wedding an event that we approached as a couple. I was completely exhausted accepting thanks when she thanked me for what I said to the boys in the living room. She stayed for breakfast, which I ordered in the room. The trip home was wonderful. We arrived at my house, and before leaving, she kissed me hard. I want you to know that I'm here for you, whatever you want, whenever you want. At some point, I forgot why I loved you. Somewhere in the routine of my adult life, I forgot how much I loved you. Leaving you was the biggest mistake I could ever make. I threw away the most precious thing I've ever had. Hurting you will always be the biggest regret of my life, and I wish I could just turn back the clock. Anyway, whenever you want, just let me know. Do you want a friend to play tennis? Call me. Need a fan? Support the singer? I'm your girlfriend. Need a lover? I'm your woman. I need to cook a meal. I'll cook it. I will clean, fold your laundry, wash the dishes and windows. I will never ask for or expect exclusivity. I know I refused it. But if you ever ask, the answer is yes. Friend, girlfriend, lover, wife, just ask. Thank you for being you've been so wonderful. And if you ever decide to live with someone else, count on me to let her know what she has and that she'd better make you happy, or I'll wait. That's very kind of you, Ellen. I was so happy that we could get close again. I'm just not sure I'm comfortable labeling us. I do not know where we are going. I am just happy that we are going there together, at least part of the time. I've lived with women all my life and usually followed their orders. First my mom and sister, and then right after college I married you. I like living in a house where I determine the colors and the level of clutter. I like to cook my own food the way I like and have a fridge full of my favorite dishes. I like playing in a band, and I admit it was nice to have an open bed life. I don't plan to change that anytime soon. Do you remember the note I wrote in response to your letter? Yes. You wrote that I was right, thanked me and said goodbye. You didn't even sign it with love. I meant every word in this note. You were right. We were tired and needed a change. The words of gratitude and farewell were sincere. Anything about love would be inappropriate and superficial. Any other thing I could say would either be just mean or make me look like a begging, whining weakling. I'm not very good at all of this. So I wrote what needed to be written and stopped. What should I write now, Tom? Nothing. I've shown you everything you need to know. Yes, it is. You showed me that you care. You showed me that you still find me attractive. You've shown me that you want me. You will be by my side when it comes to children. You've shown that you love me more than a casual lover, even enough to share dinner and breakfast with me. You like my company enough to date me. You respect me and our history enough to transfer me to first grade, pay for our daughter's wedding in full without asking me for a dime, and announce to our sons that I am the love of your life. The only thing that seems to be missing is a more fulfilling role, being your wife. I want you to know that I understand this and will never pressure you on this topic. I know it was my fault that I lost it, but understand that if you ever decide to ask, the answer in advance will be yes, and I will pray every day of my life for the opportunity to say it. She kissed me goodnight. Of course, I thought about what she said, but come on for real. Why stop at one woman? I had the whole world in my hands, my own house, my children grown up, financial comfort, an ex-wife dedicated to getting me back, who, by her own admission, would do anything at any time, a toned body and all my hair, a combination of a hot band and a Harley, and an endless supply of women who wanted to jump on the back of my motorcycle and go to a party. Oh, of course, I loved Ellen enough, and she was someone to share the golden years with. Maybe I'll change my mind when we turn 60, but not now. I didn't write, "Dear Jeff," so I didn't feel responsible for the consequences. I forgave her. I made peace with her. I put my life in order. So I picked up the phone and called the blonde who got on the Harley after the street festival. She giggled into the phone when I asked her if she was serious about never taking my calls again. She assured me that she was fine and walking again and invited me to come right away. Even when I started the Harley to go to her, I knew that someday I would ask Ellen to marry me again. But that was not the day.